This is to help people with avoiding heuristic traps. We'll explain what heuristic traps are in a moment, but there's 3 lines of questions or 3 lines of thinking that will help you avoid heuristic traps. So number 1 is evidence, number 2 is process, and number 3 is influence. So that's evidence, process, and influence. Those are the 3 lines of questions and thinking that will help you avoid heuristic traps. I'll explain a little bit more in a moment. To start off with, it might be useful to explain what heuristics and heuristic traps are. Firstly, let's make sure we understand that heuristics are not bad, they're useful tools. So we all have heuristics or shortcuts in thinking or shortcuts in process to make sure that we can do things a little bit easier and a little bit more efficiently. We all do them, and they're not bad. They're only traps when the shortcut in thinking puts us into a position that's causing us danger or harm. So those are heuristic traps where we should have done a little bit more deep thinking or a little bit more consideration to make sure that we're not getting ourselves or our groups into problems. So that's a heuristic for you, and a heuristic trap. I hear a lot of talk about heuristic traps in the outdoors. And let's give you a couple of examples of what a heuristic trap is. So there's 2 or 3 examples off the top of my head for you. So a heuristic trap is where you might have a familiarity heuristic. So that means you're going to a site that's so familiar to you that you don't really consider in depth every time you go there all the risks that might happen to you, yourself, the group, or the weather conditions that are there. And if you keep going to the same site, you can become a little bit complacent, and before you know it, something might happen at the site that you're so familiar with that you've not really planned for that day, and that causes a problem. So an example might be you go on the same gorge walk every single day, and then suddenly you don't pay any attention to the weather, and then the weather catches you out whilst you're on the gorge walk and you have a flood whilst you're in the gorge. That's a familiarity heuristic. So another type of heuristic trap that we could fall into would be a scarcity heuristic. And the kind of the easiest way to describe that is if something is quite difficult or rare to get hold of, or you've put yourself into you're going on a holiday, for example, and you really want to go skiing, or you really want to go ice climbing, that becomes a scarce experience for you. So you're going to do everything you can to make sure you maximize your time out on the slopes or out on the ice. So we can get ourselves into a scarcity heuristic where we're here anyway, so let's go and do it anyway. So we don't cut short, we don't think about our thinking and our decision making. We're more influenced by the pressure to go and do something in the conditions that are presenting. So it's a scarcity thing. I don't go ice climbing much, so therefore I'm going to go ice climbing, rather than asking, should I go ice climbing? So that's a scarcity heuristic. The popularity heuristic would be something like, well, they're all going into the cave, so therefore it must be safe for me to go into the cave. It's because something seems popular by lots of people doing it. That's a shortcut in thinking whether it's the right thing to do for you and your group. So popularism or popularity heuristics is where we're not actually deciding the venue and the conditions for us and our group. We're being influenced by the observation of other people who may be more experienced and more capable than us, or making a really bad decision themselves. Lots of people are going surfing today, but they're not expert surfers, they're just making a really bad decision. So at the top of the video, we used 3 words or 3 internal questions you could ask, or lines of thinking, and they were evidence, process, and influence. And those are kind of key words that you could remember to go through to help you with your avoiding your heuristic traps. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So evidence is a kind of overarching word to ask yourself the question, how do I know? So what evidence have I got? How do I know that what I'm about to do is okay for me to about to do this? So what evidence have I got? Okay, and if you have that simple one phrase through your head, how do I know that I can do this? That would be a really good sort of overarching question. And then you could ask the question, which is a process-based question, which is quite simply, what process did I go through to get to this decision? So in other words, what evidence did I look for? Did I look at weather forecasts? Did I look at my own internal state, whether I'm fatigued mentally or physically? Did I look at my group and ask my group whether they're fatigued mentally or physically, or whether above their skill set of what we're about to do? So we're asking for, what process did you actually go through to check off that you are about to make an effective decision? And finally, you've got the word influence, which is the one that's kind of subtle, and we need to be really careful of that one because we're all being influenced all the time, but we need to make sure that we're not being overly influenced to make a decision one way or the other. So am I being influenced to make a decision to do this or to not do this for whatever reason? So you could be really in a situation where you're about to try and get to the top of a mountain and the conditions are really not right, but the clients that you're with are influencing you to get to the top of the mountain because that's their major goal. But you might be thinking it's really not a good idea, it's really not safe, but I feel pressured to do that. So you've got to just be careful of, am I being influenced to curtail a job or to overextend yourself on a job because you're feeling influenced by other people's desires and needs. Yeah, we've got to cater for their desires and needs, but make sure they don't override the role of your primary job, which is to keep them safe, keep them learning, and get them there. Getting them there is superfluous to keeping them safe. There's no point in getting them there if they're not safe. You've got to bring them back. So there you go. You've got evidence, how do I know? Process, how did I come to that decision? And influence, is there any external factor making me think one way or another to make things, make a decision a particular way? So there you go. That's a quick way of trying to help people avoid heuristic traps. And if you start that at the beginning of your day, that'd be really useful, and kind of keep questioning yourself gently through the day, and that will help you avoid putting yourself into situations with your groups. It's not infallible, but it'll help avoid the situations with groups so that you can think about your decision making as you're making it, or the process of your decision making. A quick afterthought, because I'm very aware that everything I've shared with you so far is about thinking and about making decisions. So as human beings, we have a bit of a problem. We have something called decision fatigue. In other words, after we've spent a long time making decisions, our ability to make effective decisions drops. So we become fatigued from making decisions, and it's a well-documented thing within psychology. So I guess what I'm asking you to do is become aware of your own state and your own thinking and your own energy level. Because as you go through the day, your ability to make decisions will get less and less and less effective. So if you become suddenly aware that you're not working at your best, you're not thinking at your best, you're not thinking creatively, adaptively, you're not taking all the information in properly, or you may be just driving yourself towards a goal because you feel pressured towards that, just kind of become self-aware about what's going on for you as a leader. And if you think that you're not optimizing at your best, then the simplest thing to do is to just take a very short break. It's amazing what a very short break can do. Stop whatever you're doing, pull over to the side of the route you're doing, or the object you're trying to achieve, and take a physical break and a mental break. Talk about something else, just take 5 minutes off, have some food, have some carbohydrate food, have some nutrition down your neck, have a bit of water, and that will make a big difference to the amount of decision-making capability you're having at that point in time. So you need a little bit of a break mentally, a little bit of a break physically, and that will put you back onto nearer your A game than where you probably were, which is just doing heuristics, just doing as quickly as you can. So what we're really talking about here is, as a leader, it's really useful to get self-aware and go, how am I feeling, how well am I doing? Because that's going to make an impact for you, the group, and the day that you're achieving. So there we go. There's a few tips for you on decision making and using heuristic traps, and some questions to avoid those heuristic traps. Good luck.